So, hello and welcome to our new episode. I'm personally really happy that my dear friend Ali Reza accepted our interview to have such a friendly, actually, exchange today about architecture. And I will just keep it short and tell you that we know Ali Reza since relatively a long time ago. We shared lots of thoughts and moments about architecture and also about life. But as the first question, just to start our friendly conversation with Ali Reza, I wanted to ask you, Ali Reza, uh, how, what's the story of Ali Reza Kharazmi and how is your connection happened with architecture?
Okay, well, thank you, Amir, for inviting me for to this conversation. Actually, it goes back to the middle school in math, and I don't know, it was vocational studies probably.
Hmm.
I got familiar with architecture and drawing. In math, we had geometric drawing part. I don't know if you remember, but it was really interesting. Actually, probably I would say that I um, become interested in architecture through the tools, probably. At that time, our math teacher showed us a drawing by someone. His father was an engineer,
Yeah.
yes, civil engineer, building engineer. I don't know. Uh, the teacher showed us a piece of drawing by the student and told us that this way you should draw. Actually, this is the perfect drawing
Yeah.
with rapidograph and on a transparent paper, calc, we called it.
Yeah.
It was really interesting for me, and I thought that, okay, I really like to work with these tools. After that, in vocational studies um, textbook, there was a textbook in a part of that um, we studied about building and architecture, and I thought that yes, this is the field that I would like to do it entire my life. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I started to know architecture from those very moments. Um, and after that, actually, I started working in practice. When I finished my formal studies in the university, I started working in practice. And during these times, I felt that I really need to know about theory of architecture because I realized that architecture is not just making buildings, and
Hmm.
we have to work with some subjective materials rather than objective touchable materials with even you know um, even with drawing. Before
Hmm.
that, we have to know theories of our architecture. We have to develop our theory of architecture, kind of. So I started to research in
Hmm.
architecture, and I started with social sustainability and the social cultural issues in architecture. I was very interested in bringing those things into design.
Okay, for the people who don't know it, sorry because of interruption, but for the people who don't know it, in that period you were in Iran, right?
Yes, exactly. In that period, I was in Iran. Actually, unfortunately, in Iran, we didn't have really good education.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but actually, we had teachers. We had really brilliant teachers. I mean, there was limited number of teachers who could help us, but uh, actually, I was very lucky that
Yeah.
I had a very great teacher during my master's studies. And through him, actually, I get to know how to think about theory and how to
Mm.
start research in architecture. And after that, I moved to Istanbul, Turkey, and I directly moved to theory of architecture.
Hmm.
And I started my studies in theory of architecture and producing discipline-specific knowledge in architectural design.
Hmm.
And up to now,
Your
actually,
PhD period, right? In your.
exactly.
Mhm.
But my PhD period was really long, and it's something like I did both master's and PhD in Turkey, in
Yeah.
this period of time, because I started from very fundamental ideas, and I started to read about history of architecture, theory of architecture, history of the theory of architecture, right?
Mm.
And yes, and after that, I um, try to continue the same way. And right now, actually, I am trying to uh, bring, or let's say, identify the internal powers inside architecture and to understand how we can bring them into practice and design. And this way, we can actually connect um, theory and practice in a correct way, probably, in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah. As far as I know, you were always focusing somehow on bridging the gap between practice in architecture and theory. And you also dedicated a part of your research on that. And it would be also nice just to hear maybe a little bit about that part of your research. How was Istanbul Technical University as a research, for example, institute for you? And yeah, just let's go through them.
Yeah, actually, as I told you, I started my probably, uh, I would say that my current knowledge is based in those era that I mean those moments that I spent in the library of the Istanbul Technical University. Uh, there is a very rich library of architecture. Actually, I would say library of architecture because you can find really brilliant resources in that library. And I spent a lot of time in this library reading books. I don't know, seeing the images of very great projects. And it was really enjoyable for me. Actually, it was a really, um, I would say, turning point to start my studies in at Istanbul Technical University. Uh, about your question on how we can actually, how I studied uh,
Mhm.
the relationship between theory and practice. Actually, I conceptualized my research based on different thinking modes in academia and practice. Academia is very important. Academia is the point that we start specific studies on architecture. So it is very important. On the other hand, in the society, practice of architecture is really important. People know architecture through practice because
Mhm.
they can see and touch and live inside the production of architecture or production of the practice of architecture. This practice can be enriched through academic support. So this way, academia and practice, and the connection of these poles is really important. So I started conceptualization based on the hypothesis that how academic people think and how practical people think in architecture.
Mhm.
So I started to do a research in Iran, and I conducted this study through very famous people, let's say very, very well-known people who are doing practice in Iran or teach in very recognized universities in Iran.
Yeah.
And the result was really interesting.
Mhm.
Actually, I realized that these two groups are thinking differently, and this is not good. Um, yeah, unfortunately, academia, because of let's say lack of independency,
Mm-hmm.
no, lack of independency. I mean, architecture is an independent discipline. In my view, it's an autonomous discipline, but autonomous not in the meaning that it is actually apart from other disciplines. No, but in the sense that architecture has its own boundary
Mm-hmm.
and should be respected by all disciplines in the society, uh, in whatever context we put it, should be respected. Actually, this is my own view. So
Yeah.
the academia, the supportive actually institution for this field, should also be kind of independent. Should think freely, should develop ideas freely.
Yeah.
But currently, most of the institutions of architecture, schools of architecture, are dependent to universities, to the educational system, I mean, larger educational system that tries to connect different disciplines, engineering, humanities, arts, I don't know, medical science, I don't know, biology. So, in this way, architecture, um, let's say, as a discipline in academia, should be in a balance with other disciplines. For example, the criteria for academic promotion is very similar, for example, to the criteria that we have in biology.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is not a good way to, um, let's say, um, um,
That's
for
not good.
promotion.
That's not a good method of evaluation, you mean, right?
Yes, for example, this is
Mm-hmm.
just an example that I just wanted to um, make it clear that how architecture I mean compared in academia
Yeah.
with other disciplines,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is a result of mixture of architecture with other disciplines in
Mm-hmm.
university-based actually environment. So architecture should have its own environment of education. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually my own view, coming out from my research.
Yeah. And with autonomy, you meant exactly this definition. Am I right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You know, I talked to you that recently our focus in the Studio Read Dialogue was a little bit on tradition and modernity and the idea of actually developing concepts, idea. I know, for example, that you're already familiar about the famous sentence of Bernard Tschumi about architecture without concepts, without ideas, can be only a building. That's why, from this point, I will just give the platform to you and just ask you, what do you think about this dilemma? I would say, just to make the balance between tradition and modernity. You can give examples if you want from the context of architecture in Iran, Turkey, or also in the world from the places that you would like to give.
Uh, okay. So, yeah, actually, I totally agree. Uh, I mean, the inherent entity of architecture is
Hmm.
concept, an idea. When we are working on concept, an idea, um, we can contribute to, you know, the architectural autonomy, I would
Hmm.
say, um, in today's world even. When we work on the concept, we are trying to work with meanings,
Yeah.
work with, solving complex problems of the world. So it is different from building.
Hmm.
Um, most of the students right now, as far as I'm dealing with the students in the university, um, most of the students are mixing these two things with each other. I mean, are we going to be a building engineer or an architect?
Hmm.
What is the difference between these things? So, of course, being an architect is not really easy because we need to, in one part, we need to deal with architecture, with the subjective thinking,
Yeah,
let's say speculative, let's say operation of our brain. And the other side, actually, we need to make money.
exactly.
We need to deal with
We
buildings
need
too.
to survive.
Exactly. We need to survive and we need to actually deal with buildings too. So in architecture, we have these two parts, and that's why it's hard. You start from subjective thinking and um, and with a physical objective production, which we
Yeah,
call it building, or it can be even the city or whatever, production of architecture, production of architectural thought,
yeah, yeah.
um, to be more precise. Then, so the concept here has the governing role for rest of the process. So it's important for us to deal with concepts in the beginning, even start from the concept, and in the building stage, when we are in the building stage, based on that concept, we can choose our material. We can place our matter
Yeah.
on the ground to make
Hmm.
buildings. So everything is based on the concept. Concept here has the governing role. If you
Interesting.
just remove the concept from buildings, they are going to be just buildings with
Yeah,
function. Probably they can work perfectly, but they can't add uh, anything to culture, you know,
interesting.
to to knowledge, to human history.
Yeah.
They're just an object, and we will use it, and they will dead, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Dear Alireza, that's an interesting point. When you step in, for example, the studio that you are managing as a teacher in the university, uh, how do you communicate about the idea of concept in architecture with your students? I know that I remember from my own studies that, especially in bachelor studies of architecture, the word concept has so many different definitions among students, among professors. How is your definition, and how do you communicate about just developing a concept in your studio?
Okay, actually, concept is really complicated.
Mm,
Actually, entity, I would say, it's really complicated because you should include history, you should include your own point of view, you should include the gaps that you can find, you should include the questions as well as the answers for the questions.
mm,
All things here can be creative, and it depends. The whole thing depends on one thing: how we can see um, the phenomena that we are dealing with,
mhm.
how we can see the site that we are going to design inside it, how we can see, for example, the environment that we are going to put or a production, architectural production inside that, right?
Yeah.
So this is really complicated,
Mhm.
but actually we need to make it simplified in order to solve it, in order to um, let's say um, conceptualize our architectural project. We need
Mhm.
to um, in the first hand, I mean, when we want to start, we need to simplify it.
Yeah.
The simplification usually, I think, that began from
Mhm.
history of architecture. So
Yeah.
there are different methods for that. There are different actually. viewpoints even. One of them is, for example, mimicking how architects think. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why history here is important, because we want to understand how architects think about a specific building.
Yeah.
And um, or for example, what is the process of design of a certain architect when he was thinking about a certain project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding this process uh, give us the way to mimic actually the same process in our
Yeah.
project. And step by step, we get the skill to think like an architect.
Mm-hmm.
Or we have even different. I always give example from Hegelian dialectic, for
Yeah.
example, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So we have, for example, architects in the history that use this approach to
Mm-hmm.
produce their projects, to conceptualize their project. So all in all, we need to read about history. We
Mm-hmm.
need to understand the way of seeing,
Yeah.
and when we in addition to these things, we need to be careful about the ongoing, or they say status quo, or ongoing condition, the
Yeah.
condition that we can see right now. So these three things can help us probably to conceptualize our projects in a very well direction, I would
Mm-hmm.
say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would also ask in this point about the difference maybe between two words and two different approaches. We already, I know that we've talked about historicism and the references to, for example, some references, historical references. I would formulate it in this way. For example, let's imagine the Shahyad Monumental. There are references, historical references from pre-Islamic architecture, from Torre Castro and Sasanian era, for example. And there is this inclusive and different historical references. But I know that probably what you mean about history is the history of ideas. Could you maybe define these two difference between historicism and the history in itself?
Okay, actually, yes, actually, it's right. I mean, history of ideas, because we need to know how a certain idea during the history evolved, and right now, for example, when we see the current moment of that idea is in this way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everything has its own history. Whenever I want to define, for example, architecture, even, I would say that okay, let's go to see what was the definition of architecture in the history.
Yeah.
For example, during Renaissance, during Middle Age, during these eras, what was the definition of architecture in a
Mm-hmm.
certain time? So uh, history help us actually to um, find the origin of or the origin of the ideas, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they evolved. So in this way, we can contribute architecture in a best, let's say, possible way. How? In the for example, there's an idea about, I don't know, about, can be residential building, can be theaters, the origin of these ideas can help us to create even one small modification in those ideas and represent it as a new idea, as own or own actually trace in
Mm-hmm.
architecture. In Shahyat, the example you just gave, we have, yes, actually. As I told you, it depends on the way of seeing of the architect, how architect see the history, see these elements. Um, this is an example of using those ideas in architecture.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that in Shahyad there is nothing copied from, I mean, exactly copied from
Mm-hmm.
the history. We have just ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and we have just transformation of ideas in, for example, Shahyad Monument. In other projects also, we have these things. We have to know the ideas, architectural ideas, what was the story behind these ideas, and then we can transform it, we can develop it, we can, I don't know, reproduce those ideas, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
this way, history can affect our discipline and our practice, I would say.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. And I would like to ask you, who is your favorite, or what type of architecture is your favorite one? I would like to ask you, please give us an example from the context of Western, an example from Iran that you like, and an example maybe from Turkey. That's why maybe you can give us three different architecture practices from three different contexts: Western, Iran, and Turkey.
I am really interested in projects that um, include some ideas and
Yeah,
concepts
yeah,
and
yeah.
can add to the discipline of architecture. At
Exactly.
the
That's what
same
I
time,
mean.
can affect the society.
Exactly.
So, probably based on this definition, you can guess who is my favorite architect. Actually, my favorite architect, because of some reasons, is Peter Eisenman.
Mm.
Um, because, yeah, in the Western context, in American context, mm, because I believe that he's really honest. However, there are critics about Peter Eisenman, but um, the way he tried to develop architecture, the way he actually introduced architecture to the human society is really valuable for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm interested in Peter Eisenman. For example, it is really simple. If you go and see the website of Eisenman Architects, you can see the ingredients of ideas he developed during different years. You can see the diagrams, you can see the explanations of the ideas. And this is the thing that I call it honesty.
Mm.
And the language is totally architectural. In this website, the language is totally architectural. Maybe normal people who don't know about architecture cannot understand those things, but
Mm.
um, for architecture students, for architecture community, it is totally understandable. And he actually tries to explain the process, the true process that he had in different projects, even. Uh, by that, I mean that it is not for attracting rich people.
Yeah.
The aim was probably to contribute architectural community in the first in place, and that's why it's valuable. We
Yeah.
have to value these ideas because um, this kind of approach, this kind of behavior toward one's own profession um, can save it. Not only, I would say, not only can save it, but also can elevate it in society.
Yeah.
So this kind of behavior can elevate architecture in society at this moment.
Mm.
Uh, In the dominancy of AI, I don't know, sustainable design, I don't know, rules, which is more about building rather than architecture. I'm
Yeah.
developing a paper on that, by the way, but um, architecture is going to be disappeared in a very near future if
Mm.
we, let's say, if we combine it with building science.
Yeah, yeah.
It will be disappeared, and
Mm.
it will disappear actually because the borders are going to resolve in other disciplines, and we don't
Mm.
have borders, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So architects like Peter Eisenman tries to draw this border to, to our discipline, to architecture.
Mm.
Tries to say that, okay, people, this is architecture, and
Yeah.
we need a specific language to understand it, to analyze it, to study it. You know, so this is so valuable for me. That's why
Yeah.
I'm interested in Peter Eisenman. We don't normally architects, even I'm talking about star architects. Even star architects are really interested in attracting investors. But Peter Eisenman, in the first place, tries to actually contribute the
Yeah.
discipline itself.
That's why you call him and his approach an honest approach. Am I right?
Exactly.
Because he's actually elaborating the process in a very honest way, and we know it. And of course, it's not a kind of mystery, but there is a product at the end of the day, an architectural product, and the process. We fake it as architects
Exactly.
very often. I mean, there is a final product, and if you compare honestly the final product with the process that we show as architects, it's not an honest approach. It's just we are faking that process.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
why.
I really agree. Actually, um, in the websites you can find, for example, very reductionistic diagrams that
Yeah,
they try to explain. For example, this is the idea behind it, but it is totally reductionistic. It is
yeah,
not a real process. And or for example, they just try to show different, I don't know, climatic diagrams to
yeah,
show that okay, our project is really efficient. That's okay. It's something else. It has nothing to do with architecture.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Alireza, is architecture, that's maybe a very general and difficult to be answered question, but is architecture at the end of the day about a beautiful final product?
uh, yes, it is. Is a good question, but I don't think so because even I would say we don't have the word beauty
Hmm.
in dictionary of architecture. I would say in architectural lexicon. I would say, um, as I told you, okay, it is the project has to do with human emotions. It can engage with human emotions, to evoke something in us to say that okay, that is beautiful or that is not. But it is not uh, maybe um, what they say, specifically architectural knowledge when
Hmm.
we talk about beauty. It is something about, for example, environmental psychology. It's something about even people mood.
Yeah,
The culture that people are coming can affect it. Can affect their view to a beautiful thing that can affect actually their even a statement about something which is beautiful or and is not beautiful, right?
yeah, yeah,
It can be affected by the culture. So I would say beauty is not, I mean, actually no longer is the topic of architecture.
yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Alireza, could you please give us your example about the context of Iran? which architecture do you follow and you appreciate in Iran, and you find that type of architecture pioneering in Iran? Could you give
Yes,
us an example?
of course, yes. In architecture, as I told you, I would talk about practices rather than architectural projects. I got to know Ali Reza and Reza when I was studying my master's,
Yeah, yeah.
and since then, I follow their work,
Hmm.
and I think Reza is different actually. Reza tries to develop his own practice, and actually with his wife, their practice are established together.
Yeah.
Reza and Catherine.
And their office is
Uh,
based in
yes,
Tehran, in
Tehran.
Iran. Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
exactly. And but Ali Reza is different. Right now, Ali Reza is progressing. Uh, I
Mm.
can feel it. Um, Ali Reza is so intelligent. He's
Yeah.
my friend, and I know him very well. He's so intelligent, um, and he's in connection with education. Actually, he is the dean of the School of Architecture in Architectural Association.
Mm, yeah, yeah, in
I,
Tehran.
I, I don't know the yeah in Tehran. Um, Architects Contemporary Architects Association in Iran.
Hmm.
There is a school over there, and Ali
It's
Reza is going.
actually, sorry, it's an alternative school of architecture in Tehran, right? It's not.
Exactly,
Mm,
exactly. It's not, let's say, a governmental school.
yeah,
It's an independent school, and I think they really work well.
yeah,
Uh, since it is not Western, uh, the social media can don't
yeah,
support this school, but
yeah,
um, I think in Iran they really do really great.
yeah, yeah. As you
And
remember, we already met each other in Tehran
yeah, in that school,
in that
I can
school.
remember. Yeah,
I
that day.
remember that.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
remember too. It was great actually. I all the time miss this school.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
the atmosphere of this school.
But Alireza, these two architects, they are from also two different generations, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
actually, Reza Danishmir is. We can call them from different generation, but um, of course, Ali Reza is younger and worked really well in
Mhm.
expanding his own theory and putting those theory in practice.
Mhm.
And I would say that, however, he never accepts it, but I would say that uh, Ali Reza's performance in architecture should be praised, and I really admire because he tries to contribute to architectural autonomy, you know, to elevate the place of architecture in the society. This is really
Mhm.
important for me. He doesn't accept it. He says that, okay, I don't like even architectural autonomy.
Mhm.
Mm, I think, yeah, based on our conversation, I can realize that he's not really interested in that. But mm, in practice, he actually contributes uh,
Mhm.
to architectural autonomy, and it's really important. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
at least I would to add it. I would like to add it that I find it personally very okay that we have different readings. Uh, for example, you may have a different reading about my own architecture practice, and it would be totally different about what I think about my own architecture. That's what I meant. I think it's very okay from my side, from my perspective, to have different readings about each other's architecture practice. Okay,
of
I
course,
just wanted to add it.
yeah, of course, yes, actually. is really positive, I would say,
Mm.
to read about each other's practice. And
Yeah.
my favorite architect, Peter Eisenman, also all the time says that I drew other architects' work, I draw them and learn from them. And it's very important. They can
Yeah.
teach us actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, architecture is the process, is a profession that is really mixed with education.
Mm.
Um, Education in both meaning, teaching and learning.
Yeah.
We learn at the same time we teach. Um, in architectural schools, we should have this exchange with the students. Otherwise, if it was just a one-way lecture, I think it is not a perfect architectural, let's say, class or
Yeah.
studio or theory class, whatever. Uh, so, architecture is a profession that education happens in throughout the process
Mm.
until the end. We learn and we try to, um, let's say, um, to develop our own
Yeah.
views about our own project. So
Yeah.
this is very natural, as you said,
Perfect.
natural and
And
common.
Reza, what do you think about Reza Danishmir's approach? Do you want to also give us some words about his architecture?
Okay, yes, Reza looks at architecture like an art, like an it can be an abstract art even. So it is very interesting that Reza also works inside architecture, I would say, not outside of that. Ali Reza also inside of architecture. Reza works, performs inside the architectural
Hmm.
borders, I would say. So in this border, he tries to do experiments. Reza tries to develop his project based on experiments, different experiments. And right now, digital technology um, is like a tool in his hand, like a very, necessary tool and basic tool in
Yeah.
his hand, not for presentation, but for designing project.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that Reza uses computer technologies to start conceptualization and design.
Interesting. Okay. And Reza, that would be one of my last questions. And we talked about education models, and you're already very active in education. You are participating different studios. And what will be your words to young architects, especially the people who are in love with architecture? And yeah, what will be your words to these people?
Okay. Okay. First of all, I think architecture student really need to be talented.
Hmm.
Even this talent is just 1%.
Okay.
Architecture students need to be talented. Without architectural talent, it is impossible. It is impossible to be a good architect. Based on my experience, I'm saying this.
Hmm.
Uh, the other thing is to understand the status quo, the time that we are living in,
Hmm.
and then learning how to see different phenomena. I also wanted to refer to recap um, letter.
Hmm.
Recap is one of SciArc actually um, founders probably
Hmm.
and professors actually in history. And actually, he tries to give some advices to students. I would read them
Hmm. Yes,
here
please. That would be nice.
because these are really important for students to know. Number one is think positively, not negatively. Number two, accept structure, but know that it is to be questioned and broken when necessary.
Mhm.
So that's why actually the status quo, the structure that we have should be very clear for us. And then we can understand that when to break them, when to transform them is really important. Number three, always be willing to explore, experiment, and invent. Don't accept the status quo. The status quo have some problems, for sure, have some problems that can be improved. So we have to improve them. In order to that, I mean, the very first step is not to accept the status quo. Number four, know yourself and be consistent with who you are and how you think. Knowing yourself is really great step.
Interesting.
Even, yeah, in normal human life, it's really important. In architecture, it is double important.
Know
Maintain,
yourself.
exactly. Number five, maintain good moral and social values. Is also really important.
Yeah,
Number six, be humble, honest, compassionate, and egalitarian. Number seven, have conviction about your work. Number eight, be open and say yes to most ideas and requests. The good ones will be valuable, the bad ones will cease to exist.
mm,
Number nine, allow employees and fellow workers freedom and ability to work to their strengths. Avoid hierarchy.
that's very
Number 10,
interesting.
really interesting. Number 10, money should be residual of work. It is really important. Money should be the residual of work, not a goal. But do not compromise your worth, right?
Yeah,
So this is actually a recap later for SciArc students.
that was
And
perfect.
yeah, and I would tell all these things to the students who want to start learning architecture.
That was perfect. Thanks a lot. That was really inspiring for me. And yeah, I hope that we can make it again. I would just call today as maybe part one, and I would be very happy just to make it happen again because it's, as I said, very inspiring, and we can develop ourselves in the past through our architecture work. Dear Aliras, is there anything else that you want to add as a conclusion?
Uh, Not actually. We actually talked about different things about theory and
Yeah,
about practice, about education, and I think this is perfect. All the time we talk about architecture. I mean, the whole community,
yeah,
when they want to talk about architecture, they should include theory, practice, and education. And
yeah.
this is the thing that we actually observed it and included in today's conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being here today and hoping see you again here in this platform.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
inviting
Thank
me
you
and
all.
for
Have a
this.
nice day.